Hello everyone, it's Kathy Champion and you're back with me in my craft room, and I am an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator and I am presenting a series called Stampin' 101. It's not just for stamping, it's for all card makers. So let me see if I can clear my space a little bit, and I'm going to zoom you in just a tad. And what I have in front of me is a 8.5 by 11 piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to bring out my trimmer. I thought today for lesson 2, the last lesson I talked to you about cardstock, designer series paper, specialty paper, colored cardstock, and all the vast array of Stampin' Up products that they offer. Today I want to center into cutting your cardstock, scoring it, and getting it ready for a card. So we're going to start out, and I'm going to show you 2 ways to make what is a typical A2 size card, which an A2 size card is just a standard 4¼ by 5.5 inch card base. And how we get those is I'm using my Stampin' Up trimmer. I love this trimmer for so many reasons. One is we have a nice clear cut guide here. You have 2 blades. You have a cut blade, the darker one. The lighter one is your score blade, which makes it very nice. You don't need but one piece of equipment to be able to cut and score, which that takes a lot of the expense out. You don't have to buy a trimmer and then turn around and buy a scoreboard too. You can do everything in this. Now if you do a lot of very in-depth 3D products or projects, then I would suggest adding a scoreboard to this. But for now, if you're starting out, this is all you need. Another thing that I love about this is you have a 17 1/4 inch wingspan, and this folds out and it also tucks back in. You have this nice lip up here at the top that when you put your cardstock up against that, you get a nice tight fit that assures that you're going to get a straight cut across there. You have these 1/4 inch guidelines all the way down from top to bottom, so some people like to cut from the bottom up. And if you're one of those people, you can very easily do that because you have your same, let me zoom you back out a minute. You have your same measurements. Let me turn it this way so you can see. You have your same measurements down here as you do up here. So you can very easily cut from either end. Now I'm more of a from the top to bottom because that's just the way I learned when I learned to craft. So I tend to always go from the top to the bottom. So that's the way I'm going to be showing you. But as I've said so many times in crafting, there really is no right or wrong way to do this. Whatever works for you is the right way. But I am going to show you some very standard type of cards. I'm going to put the score blade down, and I'm going to put my cut blade up to the top. And these are interchangeable. If you get yours and your score blade's at the top and your cut blade at the bottom, it doesn't matter. You put them on there which way is comfortable for you. But this is an 11 inch side. This is the long side of your cardstock, so I'm putting it in so that it rests up here at the top. And I'm going to bring that over to 5.5. And you might ask, why 5.5? Well, 5.5 is half of 11. So that's going to cut this piece of cardstock right in half, just like that. So now you have 2 half sheets. So this is a half sheet and a half sheet. This will make one card base. You put it back into your trimmer, line it up at 4 1/4, slide your cut blade up, bring your arm down, and then bring your score blade up and just press it and score it. You don't have to press real hard because you can rip your paper or your cardstock. But when you take it out, you're going to want to fold it. There's an indentation and a little ridge. You want to fold into the ridge. And this is where a bone folder can come in so handy, because now you can take your bone folder and come in and crease this down. Now if you don't have a bone folder, you can use any flat object you got. If you got a ruler, you can use a ruler. You might even have a pair of scissors, and you can use the back side of your scissors to get a good fold. When you're starting out, You really can't, most of us, and I know I couldn't, just go in and buy everything I needed at once. Because paper crafting is an investment. Like any hobby or anything that you would do, it is quite an investment. So I try to advise people to get the essentials first, which an essential would be a paper trimmer. This one is great, like I said, because of the fact you can score with it as well as cut. Alright, so getting back to this, you already have a card base, so you're ready now to build a card. But I also want to show you another way to cut your cardstock to get an A2 size card. There's always more than one way to do everything. So you can put it in on the 8.5 inch side. So here's your 11 and here's your 8.5. So we're going to butt it up to the top, and we're going to cut it now where we scored it a while ago. We're going to cut it at 4 1/4. So I'm going to line that up, close my arm down, and slice. So now we have this paper cut in half this way. So now to score this, I'm going to put it in on the 11 inch side, and I'm going to bring it to 5.5 because a while ago we cut it on 5.5. Now we're going to score it on 5.5. So these are your two basic folds for your A2 size card, which is a standard card in the card maker's rules. I don't know who made those rules, but that's just the way it is. That's the way I learned. So here you have a card that will open like this or like this. So either way you want to open your card, like this or like this. Now I tend to like this one that's cut on the 8.5, scored at 4 1/4, better than I do this. But there are times when these cards are necessary. Sometimes in some of your specialty fun fold cards, you might have to cut it like this. So those are your two card bases. Now you might say, well, where do we go from there? Where we go from there would be designer series paper. So I'm going to grab this one called Flowers for Every Season. This is still active in our annual catalog. And what I'm going to do is pull out a piece. And this is beautiful spring. Oh, look at those yellow roses. This is a beautiful pattern paper that I literally have fallen in love with, and I use it quite a bit. I'm going to pick this side, and when you're cutting your card bases and you have paper that looks like it has a direction, you want to decide with your cardstock, with your card base, and I'm going to use this one that opens like this. And if you were going to open it this way, you would also have to think, which way do I want to cut that? Do I want to cut it like this, or do I want to cut it like that? So you want to kind of keep that in mind if you have a paper that looks directional. Now it looks like the bases of most of these roses are facing up, so I'm going to cut mine like that, and I'm going to keep the orientation like this, which is portrait. That would be landscape. So we're going to cut this 1/4 inch less than what this was, so that's going to be 4 inches. And just remember, 1/4 inch less than what your card base is. So a while ago we cut it at 5.5, so now we're going to cut this at 5 1/4. And that's why I always put the measurements in the description so that you know exactly what I did to get those pieces. So now, as you can see, you have a nice little border all the way around, accenting that cardstock. So let's lay that to the side, and let's get a piece of the Misty Moonlight. That's the color that's in there. You might say, how do you know that? Well, because I've been doing this for a while. If you don't know, you can look on the back of your paper, like I told you in your first video. There is there's a little piece that comes with every package of paper like this, and it will tell you right here: Bumblebee, Cinnamon Cider, Just Jade, Magenta Madness, Misty Moonlight, Poppy Parade, and White. So you never have to guess what colors go with what. So I know the only blue is the Misty Moonlight. Here is a piece of Misty Moonlight. Look how pretty that is. but that yellow is pretty too. So that yellow is Bumblebee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut me a strip that is about 1 1/4 inch wide. And you might say, well, why are you doing that? I want a focal point on my card. So I'm going to cut that strip, and I want to cut it to 4 because that's how wide my designer series paper was. So I'm going to cut that to 4. And then I'm going to bring this back over, and this can go right here. Right across there like that, or you could take it to the bottom. Totally up to you. You could take it to the top, but I'm going to do mine like right in the middle. And again, you might say, how come? Because I think it looks pretty like that. So now I'm looking at my other colors, and the Bumblebee is the yellow that's in there. But you know what? I'm looking at that, and that is a bright yellow. So I could get away with the Daffodil Delight. And let me show you how I know that. Here is my little color coach, and it's really nice if you, once you gain all of your pieces, to make one of these. And basically I've cut down mats. Here is the Bumblebee. And see, that will definitely go with that. But let's look at the Daffodil Delight. And that is, I think it's this one. No, it's this one. Yeah, this is Daffodil Delight. And look how pretty that Daffodil Delight will look with that. Even though that's not a color that was shown on there, you can always look. This looks Poppy Parade. I see the, of course, the Misty Moonlight. I'll get it out in a minute. And some of the darker area in here, you could definitely use the Bumblebee, but I like the Daffodil Delight because I wanted this to look like a very pretty spring card. So I'm going to grab a punch, and this is how your punches can play in and make it very easy to make a quick card. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to grab, I think I'm going to grab the Label Me Lovely punch, and this punch is still available in our annual catalog. So I'm going to open that up. Let me move my color coach, and I keep that hanging right here by my desk because that's a very, very easy way to check out exactly what colors you want to use against the paper. And I suggest if you want to make one of those color coaches, the best way to do that would be to buy the assortment of each pack of each family of color. For example, the brights, the regals, the neutrals, and the subtles. And then that way you'll have 2 sheets of every color. You can cut a sheet, a quarter sheet to make that, punch a hole in it, label what it is, and then you have that to work with forever. So I'm going to grab Daffodil Delight. And I think that's in my brights. And it is. And I'm looking to see if I have a scrap. Anytime if I can use a scrap rather than cutting down another piece, you always want to go for the scraps if you have them, because that saves you cardstock. Now I don't have a full scrap, but I do have a half a sheet that's been cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half at 4 1/4. That will give me a base for another card. So I'll save this because I can use that as a, not a base, but a mat. So now I have this piece and I'm ready to punch. So I'm going to bring my punch in. I always hold my punches this way so I can see exactly where I'm punching. And I'm going to come out as far to the edge and bottom as I possibly can. Again, saving cardstock. And see how close I got on that? And now we have a label that we can stamp on. And I'm going to show you just how quick you can put a card together just by using your trimmer, a card base, a piece of designer series paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on the back of this. Look at that. That's almost too pretty to cover up, isn't it? And that's something all of your Stampin' Up! Designer Series papers will have, is they will have two sides. So you can pick and choose, and what you want to do when you're putting this on, you want to make sure you're getting a nice even border all the way around. And then we're going to take this piece and put it down. Just squiggle a little glue on it. Put that in the middle, thereabout. The main thing you want to do is make sure it's nice and straight. And then we're going to stamp on this before we put it on. And I'm just going to do something very simple. Here's a card. This is a sentiment stamp set. And I'm going to grab the happy birthday, because you know you always need a birthday card. So you could have done this one of two ways. You could have stamped it onto the yellow first and then punched it out, or you could do it this way. I do it both ways. It all depends on how I'm rolling at that particular time. So I'm going to grab my Momento Tuxedo black ink, and I am going to ink up my happy birthday. Just like that. And then I'm just going to bring this, and I want to line this up in the middle as best I possibly can. And it helps sometimes if you use your grid paper for this. Now I'm just going to put this down and stamp. And now we have a happy birthday. And one of our other adhesives besides glue that we have is Dimensionals. Your Dimensionals come on little sheets like this, and we will cover more about adhesives when we get to that. And I was going to do adhesives, but I've decided that I think it would be advantageous to everyone to know how to cut their cardstock first. So I'm just going to put one on each corner and maybe one in the middle. And let's just peel these off. I normally use my take your pick, but since I haven't gotten to tools yet, I'm just going to handle everything kind of, you know, old school. Just like this. And now we're going to take this piece and sit it right in the middle of this. Just like that. And look at that pretty card that we made with hardly any effort whatsoever. Now you can put a mat in here, you can cut another piece of white and glue it in, or you can stamp a sentiment on the inside. It's totally up to you, but here is a really cute birthday card that we made just like that, with just stamps, glue, paper, and of course our Dimensionals. So that will cover how to get started with cutting your cardstock and cutting your mats. Now if we wanted to mat over top of this, or say you wanted to put a Poppy Parade behind here, or the Misty Moonlight, you would have cut that mat the 4 by 5 1/4, and then your next mat would have went down 1/4, which would have taken it to 3 3/4 by 5. And you would continue to drop them. And I'm not going to teach y'all 8ths and 16ths this time. I'm going to stay with the 1/4 inches until you become a better card maker and much more versed in measuring. I like to keep it as simple as possible. And that is definitely a good way to start off with just your 1/4 inches. So this was my installment on cutting your cardstock. And we will definitely come back and address more of this as we go along. But I wanted to give you a place to start, because that's always the most fun thing, is to have a place to start. I think this card turned out lovely, and I think it's something that you can be proud of. So if you are a beginner stamper, by all means, try this. I'll have measurements in the description below the video so that you'll know exactly how to cut your 2 card bases. And if we had decided to do it on this card base, it would have worked the same way as this, only our card would open like this rather than like this. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, God bless and keep you. I love you all very much. And as I always say in closing, Let everything that you do and say bring glory to our Father in heaven. He is so worthy of our love and our praise. Until we craft again, I love you all. Bye-bye.